Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us again in Beyond the Frame. Today with me is our special guest, Tyson Branagan, Assistant General Manager, AGM of Plano SuperBowl in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Welcome, Tyson.
Hey, Jay. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, and thank you for being a guest on our show. I'm going to jump right into it here. I titled the content of this, let's talk about what Plano's been doing during this past year to survive and even thrive in many cases. And all thanks to, I wouldn't say all thanks to, but, in some cases, primarily thanks to competitive play. So Tyson, let's find out a little bit about yourself, your background. Where did you work before you came to Plano?
I've been in the bowling industry 15 years. I was pro shop for a decade, spent 3.5 years with Ebonite International as the district sales manager before the sudden sale in late 2019. And then
it was quite sudden. You're right.
I was on a business trip when I got told. So yeah, that's how sudden it was. And then I started with US Bowling in late January of last year. And unfortunately, that was fun. I was kind of just getting my feet wet. And then, this little thing called a pandemic derailed our world. And for obvious reasons, that didn't work out. So, and then, I spent much of last summer trying to figure out what was going on. And like much of the population, unemployment, I dealt with that. I took some time, spent summer with my daughter, and then I joined Plano SuperBowl in mid-October of 2020.
Nice. So you've been there coming up on 8-10 months-ish, and
6 months actually. I think they said 6 months was 2 days ago. So.
Oh well, see, I like to stretch it a little bit.
It's been a fast 6 months. It literally feels like 2.
Well, it feels like you've been there for a couple of years, the way you've been, really taking control of some of the business and helping to grow their business for them. I want to touch base on a couple of things. You come from the bowling industry. It's a really important thing to understand, but you came from the player, the competitor side first, right? And then you got into equipment, repping a ball company, which is a very different world than running a facility. And a lot of people don't necessarily pick up on that right away because it is such a different role. But your background really leads you to where I'm kind of talking about how some of the traditional centers have survived throughout the pandemic. Now, as we all know, many traditional facilities, that's a primarily league-based audience facility, they struggled. Leagues weren't bowling. They were shut down. They couldn't open for whatever reason. And in many parts of the country, it was just until a couple of weeks ago they could open. So, disadvantage. Yeah, we talked about this a lot. You come to Plano with a competitive background, you're used to running events, both scratch and handicap. You're used to competing in them, and you have a very strong league base at Plano. What I want to tell people about Plano is it's a traditional model center with a twist. You're open 24 hours. That alone is another whole conversation we could have, right? And you really do have a strong casual audience and corporate audience that has been mostly absent the past year, with the exception of some of the midnight, late night stuff that we can talk about. So what did you do to fill your revenue stream with? You gravitated towards what you knew, and that's competitive play. Talk to me about one of the first things that you created and started to nurture that really just surprised you.
Well, so when they brought me on, I think even they were questioning, do we have the need for that position? So like you said, a lot of places they weren't running the numbers. Even our league base is down because we don't have any 5-person leagues right now, which this place has thrived on 5-person leagues. Every league went to 4.
Right.
And so when we sat down, we had probably a month's worth of conversations between myself, the GM, Scott Craddock, Jamie Brooks, who, Jamie gets a ton of the credit for what Plano is, or, almost all the credit. But
Jamie's got some fabulous centers. We love Jamie. He's been on our show before. So people who know Jamie understand what he's about.
Absolutely. So, and Jamie put it on me, and two of the things he really focused on when we, finally shook hands or, fist pumped.
Yeah.
At the time, as he said, Friday nights. Friday nights had shown a considerable dip. One of their primary leagues, which was a 9 o'clock league, chose to not come back, so it left a gap. And primetime Friday, I think a lot of casual open play type bowlers look at, all right, late night Friday, let's go bowling.
Right.
And then Saturdays, a traditional bowling center, if there's not an event going on a Saturday, it could, especially here in Texas, sometimes we get some great weather in that October timeframe when I started. If there's not an event going on, it could be a little bit of a ghost town, and so he really focused on Fridays and Saturdays, and he gave me the ideas, and he talked about, hey, why don't you come up with a new league style? Well, I said, I don't want to try to make people commit, to something else right now that they have to be at every week or they're paying, because again, we didn't know. This is October. We didn't know
how long
COVID
it was going to
look
yes.
like. And you're gonna try to start a league in November. It's a weird time frame. So
it is right near the holidays and whatnot.
And there's people around Texas, and in my travels working for Ebonite, I picked up on some things of kind of flex league or mini tournament style. And my big focus, more than anything, is the word fun.
So you created what you call Phonetic Fridays.
Correct. Well, and I'm not going to take all the credit. I looked at something to go with Fridays. I came up, there was frantic. I didn't want to use that. That's been a bowling ball in the past. I found frenetic, as a synonym, and I brought it to the bowling center, and Scott Craddock goes, "What about phonetic?" I'm like, "Wow, that's really clever." And I'm like, but it's perfectly corny at the same time.
Yeah, and bowlers love their corniness. Absolutely.
So I was like, all right, what do I do with this? And I just started messing around with the computer, and I'm like, I'm just gonna roll with it. If somebody ridicules me, fine.
This is something, I'm going to pause you there. Keep that thought, because you took a chance, right? You went out on a limb and you said, I'm going to just try this. This is a point that we make on the show often. I've had guests make it, and Dottie and I, when we host this, we often talk about, you have to just do it. You cannot worry about the outcome sometimes, because if you put the outcome first, you may end up putting so many roadblocks in the way that it never gets done. So kudos to you for recognizing that. I'm not going to be stressed by what somebody may think of it. I'm going to do what's sound for my business and what seems to be fair and a fun concept. Let's roll with it and see what happens.
Yeah, and it's exactly what I did. And really, what enabled me to do it is the fact that Jamie Brooks and Butch Warren, who's the other owner here, and Scott Craddock, they all just got behind me. They said, all right, what did they have to lose?
Right. What do you have to lose? You have nothing now. You have very little business on this weird time frame. Whatever you do isn't going to chase that business away, probably. It will only complement it if it's done properly.
And I spent my first few weeks working here and kind of getting a feel of everything. And I spent a couple of Friday nights here, and I saw those lanes. They were unused from, at least 6 to 10 p.m. They were basically underutilized.
Sure.
I'm like, what do I have to lose? So I just created something, and I put it out there, and I'm a big person with social media, Facebook, and I created a group, and, I had no idea what to expect. I put the first event out there, and it didn't really get a lot of traction for a few days. And I shot for 42 bowlers. And then suddenly with 24 hours left before the first tournament, I surpassed 42.
Nice.
I was like, wow, all right, this is cool. And, alongside with it all, I created like a little point system. So I gave it the Flex League feel.
Sure.
Something that they're bowling towards.
Reward people for coming multiple times and showing up, but not penalize people for not showing up.
Correct. Absolutely. And, it just grew. And I remember we were about 6 weeks in, and I took the Friday before Christmas off to go bowl a tournament. And I remember some of the response, like people like, so what am I supposed to do?
You've created this beautiful thing that people love to do, and now they're mad at you because you're not there to run it.
I'm like, all right. So I was gonna take a 3-week break in there, and that happened. Christmas Day was obviously a Friday,
Sure.
and then I just threw together a New Year's Day one, thinking New Year's wouldn't work, and I threw it together, and almost 90 people showed up, and I'm like,
Right.
there's something here, and
There is.
the best thing about all of it is I've gotten to know a lot of really cool people.
So I want to touch on that base. Before we move on, though, I want to say hi to some of our viewers. We've got Doug Brown and John Duncan both saying hello. Hi, guys. If you have any questions for Tyson or myself, or even about the industry in general, or what you might want to do with your particular business, put it in the chat. We'll see if we can address it there.
Doug's one of my routine bowlers. I mean, really good support.
This is the kind of audience you have. They're following you around. So kudos to you. You touched on something there, and I kind of just lost my train of thought, but I wanted to go back to it. So you created the thing. It's taking off. Where are we today?
Well, today tomorrow night, I am doing what I'm calling a finale, a season finale.
Okay.
We ran 20 weeks of this thing. And I'm doing it where the top 63 point scorers. I had real quick, I had 295 different people bowl.
Wow.
And we created a little thing, and I did a finale. They all paid a $20, it's called a membership fee. All that money's going back to the bowlers.
That's a huge amount of money coming right back to the bowlers.
So it's they qualified for this thing tomorrow night, and all this money is being added to the prize fund. So I'm going to crown a Phonetic Friday Season 1 champion tomorrow night.
Beautiful.
And it's just, I didn't know what to expect. And compounding on that is I found, we had some various dates throughout the last 4 or 5 months that didn't have anything going on. And I'd create just a little run-of-the-mill type event on a Saturday or Sunday. And they've all had various levels of great success. I mean, you bowled one of them, senior event, and that's just all.
Sunday morning, 9 a.m., 60 people show up and they're ready to bowl, compete. And we're not talking $20 either. The one I bowled was like $180 or something like $160. So these are, and when we talk about the competitive marketplace and the competitive customer base, it doesn't have to be the tournament player either, right? It doesn't always have to be for big money. It can be a small sweeper. It could have no money attached to it technically and still have the competitive feel and factor to it that is what attracts the customer base. They like to be involved. They like to have a good time, and they like to feel that there is an event. And that's the difference between just having open play or casual play and having a structured environment where you're filling those lanes with this type of bowler. So for your organization, you took the Friday concept, you've run with it successful. You've also then sought out different tournament groups, including myself, the Texas Eliminator, and many others, to come into your facility on a Saturday or a Sunday morning and run these events to fill those lanes too. And how has that impacted your overall revenue? Are you guys about even to last year? Are you up over last year? Where would you say this you sit right now?
Obviously, we can't compare to April of last year because April was the one full month that was shut down.
For sure. Okay, go to 2019 then.
Yeah, as far as numbers, I mean, we're not quite there, but we've had some weekends of late. We actually kind of fell right on a little lucky area with spring breaks because we had a couple districts that were spring break 1 week.
And then another, so you got a longer stay
right on the border, and we hit really big on those. That was right at the same time as the stimulus checks, so that had to play a role.
Sure.
But, I don't know whoever told me, and multiple people have told me, and I don't know the exact phrasing of or wording of the phrase is busy breeds, more business. However exactly that is. When you're busy, when you look packed, it makes more people want to do it.
Absolutely.
So that's tournaments, that's leagues, and that's open play. I mean, 24 hours, it allows people to come whenever they want.
Let's talk about that 24-hour time frame. What kind of business have you had on the overnight hours? So let's say pre-COVID time frame, let's say your revenue was X on a Friday night from, let's say, 10 p.m. till Saturday morning. If I'm correct, I thought you told me this before, during COVID, or once the restrictions were lifted to some degree, didn't you blow those numbers out of the water?
We've had some nights that are just absolutely blowing previous numbers out of the water. People ask me still, like, how's their business? Well,
Yeah,
I think a big part of it, I mean, Plano, Texas has a lot of little bars and restaurants and all that right in this little area. Well, I mean, I've known plenty of those people in the service industry. I mean, they don't go to sleep until 7 in the morning. That's just their
exactly.
lifestyle. We have it. I mean, our bar and wait staff here, they're 6, 7 in the morning people. You know,
Right.
they don't see much sunlight. So when I've worked a couple of those overnights, you know, filling in, I wasn't sure what to expect the first time I did it. And I was like, man, I was busy until 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
it was wild. And then there's that little niche group that comes in no matter what at 5 in the morning. They're just like,
yep.
they're awake for whatever reason. They want to get a couple games in.
So the interesting thing you point out here is that I would, depending on the marketplace you're in, obviously you probably need a little bit more population to pull this off, but there is a market for a 24-hour audience, because once they find out, and they being the mass audience, once they find out that that's available to them, that's where you come into play, because you have a lot of repeat business that comes through that door that you're familiar with at that time of night. Is that not true?
Absolutely, because when I've worked that, the most common thing I get is, hey, where's the other guy? Hey, where's the other guy?
See?
They know him.
They know him, right?
So I'm like, this is, but then there's a good amount of them that just, they come in and bowl, and they might come in at 1 in the morning, you know, and bowl, and then they realize, because we focus a lot on like hourly rates and per lane, and then they realize it's not super expensive, and they pay for another hour and another hour. Obviously, once the bar shuts down, you know, and there's not really much to consume, we lose a decent amount of those people for the night. But
you're still doing food and beverage at that point in time, right?
no, I mean, after 2 a.m., everything's shut down.
So,
You know,
okay, no
we
cafe
have the
food.
vending, yeah. But again, those people, that's their time, you know, and we're a big center. Like another one that's funny is, you know, Stephanie Johnson. This is her home center, and
I was going to get to Stephanie.
Well, and it's funny. Her primary time to practice, and I'm sure many of people have seen it on Facebook, and she's posting on social media. She's probably here before the counter staff on many days. That's just her thing. She gets up, she starts her day, and goes and gets a good practice session in, and but she knows she can.
Right.
That's a beauty of it. Like, you know, as opposed to some of those other markets, I want to go bowl. Oh, I can't. So
let me bring Stephanie in the fold for a little bit here. She's been an employee of Plano. She used to help with the events coordination there, and you know, since she's become a mom of 2 beautiful children and she's out on tour, that's not her primary focus anymore. But what's the value of having a professional bowler in your facility, accessible to your customers, that is welcoming and able to chat with people and help them with their game, you know, casually, not in a formal setting? What do you think the value is to that?
I think it depends on who it is. They gotta be personal or personable. And I remember coming up here so many times, Stephanie was like, she took the job like with pride. I mean, it wasn't, oh, I'm Stephanie Johnson and I'm a professional bowler, and okay, I'm just doing this as a job. No, she took full pride and enjoyed every second of it. And even when she left to go, you know, take on these other endeavors, she's here and she bowls, and she never, ever acts like she's above anybody.
Right. And that's where I was going with this.
Yeah.
When you meet Stephanie and you come, I mean, yes, these people get approached all the time when they're out on the road, and it does become a little bit challenging to put the same exact intensity level into meeting every single person along the way. I get that. But when you have someone like a Stephanie in your building, and she is just a genuine person also, and willing to invest time of her own into helping someone better their game or answer some questions, or even just to say hi to people, you can't put a price on that. You really cannot, because people are going to remember she's not at XYZ Bowl around the corner. She's at this place, and she was nice to me and she helped me. So if you have professional bowling staff in your facility or in your marketplace, whether they run pro shops in your building or they just bowl league there, you really need to capitalize on the people that are able to do that. I'm firm believer of that.
Yeah, and this place has had over the years. I mean, Chris Johnson was on tour. Stephanie's husband, he was on tour, and he spent a lot of time bowling here and then working here.
Right.
Dino Castillo owned a pro shop, another professional.
Sure.
To Stephanie, and Stephanie bowls a lot of these Friday nights. That's just
she's also out there competing with them. So she's developing that kind of relationship with them. She kicks their butt on a regular basis and smiles with them.
Even when she has an off week, because shockingly enough, she's had like an off week, maybe one, but she loves it. She has a great time with the people. I mean, my daughter won one of these little tournaments and super bashful, and I can't get her to take a picture. And the one person that went to go make sure she took a picture was Stephanie.
See, that's beautiful right there.
And then now we have Chris Warren here, still high level bowler and bowling on the 50 tour. And
doesn't he have the most regional wins of like anybody in the world?
I think so. Or
it's crazy. It's like 100. I don't know. It's just a lot. He is such a bowler competitor that, the knowledge base that he has and just the tenacity to stay focused and competitive for that long of your life. That's amazing right there.
Absolutely. And you'd be challenged to walk in when he's not on tour, to walk in between the hours of 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. and not find him here.
Sure.
And he's spending all his time on the lanes with people. Same thing. He doesn't act like I'm a professional. Yeah, I mean, he owns the pro shop, so it's a business.
Yeah.
But for him, it's beyond that. And I think it's the value of, it starts from the ownership on down. Jamie Brooks is a super approachable guy, and he's always bred that into everybody.
He breeds that into his employees and his customers. And when I talked to Jamie, it was really interesting that he picks up the phone and calls his bowlers to find out how they're doing during the pandemic. He just cares about his customers. You cannot replace that genuine, you can't replace that. You can't teach that. You can't create it. You either have it or you don't, and you're either doing it or you're not. And, completely on him is how he started from the top, and that kind of mindset has just trickled down to everyone below. And I believe you're very much in the same way. You pick up the phone, you talk to all your bowlers, you ask them to come participate, and you're there to help them when they're not. So, well, you know what, Tyson, our time is coming to an end. Boy, it flew by like that. It really did. So thank you so much for being with us. Kind of a closing thought you want to leave everybody with? Because I didn't tell you I was going to do this.
I mean, if you're around this area and you have not experienced Plano SuperBowl, I'm not doing this to sell anything. It's just what I was going to say on the whole Jamie thing is our ownership and all management, they're very accessible. And I'm not saying other bowling centers may or may not be, but I think that's one of the most valuable things is I think when I went downstairs right before we started this, Jamie was out there bowling, just practicing. They're always accessible. And I think that's what makes this place stand out. And I'm extremely fortunate to be a part of it. Everything kind of worked out in its way for a reason.
Yep.
It's really those guys at the top that enabled me to take chances and run with them. And that's what's working.
That's the takeaway today. If you have an idea, if you are in a facility and you're looking to just make waves and movement and generate something, you must take a chance. You must try. Dan Patterson said it one time. He said, look, if you want to hit a bullseye, you got to throw darts. If you don't throw the darts, you're never going to hit the bullseye. So you don't know until you try. And that is the message from today, clearly, right?
It's always been my philosophy for everything I've done. I'll try stuff. I don't care to fail.
Right.
Because I'm going to try it.
Failing means you're learning. So I agree with that. All right, Tyson, thank you so much for being with us. You're welcome. You're welcome. Next week on our show, Dottie San Martin's going to be back, and she's going to have Pat Sinello, who is the chairman of the board of Cubic AMF, and he's going to talk to you. Her show title is Full Speed Ahead, for good reason. You know, what did Pat and his centers do during the pandemic? They didn't stop. They were full speed ahead. They built a brand new facility, racetrack. So there's a little hook there. But you're going to find out how they've weathered the storm and what's in store for the future of them. Okay, so I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. Those of you guys that are watching online, and if you're watching after the fact, when you go to Dallas, Fort Worth, especially the Plano area, if you don't stop into Plano SuperBowl and say hi to the staff, shame on you. All right, we'll see you guys soon. On behalf of Tyson Branagan, Jay Nephew, and the rest of us at Cubic AMF, thank you for joining us today on Beyond the Frame.
Thank you.